Thank you for attending. Welcome. Are you all going to be standing? I feel like this is a standing ovation. Will you still be standing at the end? The problem is, will you still be standing at the end? So, hi everybody, I'm Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. I grew up just down the street on the other side of the border in New York, and somehow I became a global guy. And actually kind of accidentally, because actually it was Hooker Chemical in Buffalo that got me interested in chemicals. So I became a chemical engineer to clean up the world, and that was my focus. And then suddenly, along the way, some guy started to convince me that international was important. And then so January 7th of 1987, I was sent for the Teflon business to South Korea, and that changed my life. That was like, oh my God, like that chemical engineering stuff, who cares about that? To some extent. So thank you for all of you coming, because you all then have some sort of an international angle to you. And that's good. We need that in the world, don't we? More than ever. There's so much of the problems of the world are based on people being very provincial, very local. I remember my first job as a chemical engineer was in Beaumont, Texas. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And being one of several Yankees down in Texas, the first woman that I dated down there as a single man had never been outside of the Beaumont, Texas area. She'd never even been across into Louisiana. And it blew my mind. It's like, what? There's people like that? And there are people like that, right? And a lot of the problems we have are because of that kind of thinking. And because of your thinking, the world is better, and it's going to continue to be better. So thank you. The other part of that is prosperity. Global trade is sort of like real estate. It's like, yeah, there's ups and downs and there's a lot of noise, but fundamentally, it's always increasing. Over the last 30 years, the average annual increase of global trade is 4 to 5% per year. In 2025, it was over 7%. It's now over $35 trillion a year. And it's going to continue to increase. So you guys are all in the right spot. Our job at Global Chamber is to help facilitate that, to create connections, to help you be more successful, because it also relies on working with people that you know and trust and that are professional, like Trowbridge, to be able to get you to the next level. Have you ever had something go wrong, like you do a deal with someone and it completely unhinges and it's completely unpredictable or seemingly unpredictable and it goes south? Has anybody ever done that in business? In business, period, right? In international, it's even trickier. That person in Nigeria, do you trust them? That person in New York, do you trust them? I trust Doug Wendt, despite the fact that are you from Queens? Or you just love, oh my, okay. Well, now I'm starting to reconsider my position. But seriously, we have a lot of work to do. We have a great presentation from people that are trust people. The message that I want to leave you with is that Global Chamber is here in Toronto. We have started the chapter. We're increasing our efforts, not just in Toronto, but all across Canada. At the end of this event, we have our leaders in both Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. I said both, but I meant Alberta and British Columbia. And we have our leader in Toronto, who I'd hoped to introduce tonight, but he has COVID. So we'll have to save that for the next meeting. When should we do the next one? Where are you? Tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. So as a corporate person with DuPont, I was kind of spoiled because everything was easy. Because you walk around the world with a DuPont oval and you're trusted and you work with the best people. And when you're in a small or medium-sized business, it's trickier to know who to work with, and you have to piece it all together. So the series of people that we have speaking today are amazingly trusted and professional and know what they're doing. And so I'm really pleased and honored that all of them are members of Global Chamber and that they'll be sharing more information about what they do. The first one is Ernie and Mr. Trowbridge. Have you heard of the company Trowbridge? Both gentlemen are here. Could you guys come up and say more?
Thank you for hosting it.
So thank you for coming, and everyone online as well. So a couple housekeeping things. First of all, we're going to thank Laura for bringing all the food, and you have to consume it all before you leave. And you're allowed to take takeout, so clap for Laura, who's walking around here somewhere. So welcome to our office. So a little bit of history of Trowbridge. So myself, Todd, and our business partner, Wayne, who's currently in Mexico or Dubai. We don't know where he really is. He's presenting as well. We founded the firm around 2002, September of 2002. We started, the three of us, and we now have a team of, I think, about 200, though it fluctuates. Let's just say 200. Let's go 160. So our headquarters is here in Toronto, in this room. This is the original TD Bank trading floor. So if you go online and you look up One King West, this is where the Toronto Dominion Bank started. It was started as the Dominion Bank in 1902. And this was one of the rooms. It's actually a heritage site. This whole building is a heritage site. It's a mixed use building, which is part commercial, residential, and offices. We started in 2002, three of us. We're now up to that 160 number. We have the headquarters here in Toronto. We have a team in LA, very tiny, dealing with our entertainment division. We also have a team in London, England, Frankfurt, Germany, and then a team in India, primarily providing international tax services on the individual level, Canada, US, UK, and on the corporate level, US corporate and Canadian corporate. We also have a global mobility division, which deals with companies that relocate employees around the world. So anything relating to international tax, we can probably help you with or send you in the right direction. Whether it be, you have expats going from France to Singapore. We have affiliates in pretty much every major city in the world that can help. And now I'm introducing Todd, who's going to do the serious conversation, and I'm going to exit. See ya.
Well, it's not going to be too serious. I was asked to speak on implementing global success, and I won't profess that I'm anywhere close to being an expert in being successful globally. So what I thought I'd do is maybe just to share a few of the things that have worked for us. We've had some level of success in expanding our business to various locations. As Ernie mentioned, we've got a small team in Frankfurt, Germany, small team in the UK, pretty large team in India, about 80 people, and a couple of people scattered throughout remotely in Canada and the US. So, I'm a little bit biased in the sense that I think taking care of your tax implications, regardless of what country you're going to, is an incredibly important thing that you need to take care of. It's one of those things where, if you plan early, you can kind of take advantage of the fact that, you can often achieve tax savings and optimization by doing it ahead of time. Also, I guess the main thing is kind of keeping yourself out away from penalties and in the good books of tax authorities, of course, is always important. And also from an employee standpoint, if you're hiring people in another country, you want to make sure you're compliant for their benefit as well. One thing that we've always kind of had a philosophy on as a firm is acting as one firm and sort of that one firm mentality. So, even though we've got offices in India and all these other locations, it's always been our mindset that it's important to make sure that the teams are integrated, and that, we create an environment where things are done consistently across the globe, no matter where clients might be. And from that front, we try to make sure that all of our processes, all of our systems, wherever possible, are pretty much the same in any office that we operate out of. Another key component is just, making sure, most of our employees share the same values that we have. Things like having a strong work ethic, making sure that we have strong integrity. We have a mindset of constant improvement, which obviously helps your business here in Canada, but also as you expand globally, incredibly important. Another big thing for us is just the ability to collaborate, both with our colleagues here in Toronto, in India, wherever they happen to be, but also with our clients and other foreign tax practitioners. Unfortunately, we don't we take care of US, Canada, and UK tax, but there's lots of other jurisdictions that our clients need help with as well. So it's important to kind of understand, what the implications might be in some of those other countries. And outside of that, I think, we just try to make sure that our teams we communicate with our teams and deliver great service to our clients, and certainly happy to have a chat further, after all the speakers are done about any questions you might have, and certainly happy to help any of your clients that might need some help. So with that, I will pass it.
What was that? One of the things that I recognize in corporate world is that people who do global business are a little bit on the outside. It's proximity bias. If you're in a corporation, if you buy the water cooler by the CEO, you tend to get the ear of the local management and the corporate management. And when you're out somewhere in the world, it's harder to get them to pay attention. You can get them to pay attention, but can you actually drive it all the way through? And those of you, can anybody relate to that, being kind of a distant person out of a big corporation? So I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And so our role with Global Chamber is to recognize that it's hard to be global. And we need to make it easier for each other. And that's the concept behind the Global Tribe. So the opportunity is there. So how do we work together and be better together? The opportunity is there because of not only the data that I showed, but Carol Schleif, who's from BMO, gave a presentation a couple of weeks ago about the outlook for the US and the world. And she had spoken before that and told me she was really worried. And her worry was that she felt good about 2026. And a lot of other people did, like almost everybody else. And so are we going like sheep to slaughter? Are we really understanding what's going on? Are we going to be surprised? Or is it actually going to be a great year? So Carol's here to tell us if it is. Thank you. What do you think?
Well, we'll get into that. First off, it's a little bit difficult to take all of what happened last year and project out this year in 10 minutes or less, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. First thing to know is it's fake news if you think I'm an economist, because I'm not an economist, which is probably a great thing for all of us, because economics starts with the presumption that markets are efficient and investors are rational and everybody makes rational decisions. And as we've all seen, that's not true either. By way of brief background, I've spent the last 40 years doing market strategy, some piece of market strategy, managing portfolios for real world people, multi-generational businesses, and covering those companies as a research director and research analyst, all of this stuff going on, all from this little hamburg called Minneapolis, Minnesota, which makes me a little bit different than most of the strategists you see, because a lot of the news feed that comes from global news feed comes from the major money centers, being New York, or in the United States, the West Coast, California, LA, San Francisco. So up until the last month or so, I was part and parcel of flyover zone, and nobody paid us much attention, other than the fact that the cool part about being a strategist there is we punch way above our weight for the number of Fortune 500 companies based there. So I've got a lot of real world experience I'm able to bring in, both from managing those portfolios and interacting with those companies and covering it. And it's diverse portfolios. It's everybody from General Mills, United Healthcare, First Bank, Control Data. The supercomputer was invented there. The HMO was invented there. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of the Twin Cities that makes the viewpoint that I bring informed. It's one of the reasons why I do a lot of media for BMO, and it's one of the things that media keeps coming back, because I can bring them that real world experience and exposure. So let's go ahead, and I think we have some slides here. I was just going to do a couple slides because, yep, go ahead in the next page, because I thought pictures worth 1,000 words. And so here we go. This is both the bull and the bear in the front of the roller coaster, and this is what it definitely felt like after last year. There's a lot to keep track of, and there's also a ton of noise. Probably 99.5% of what you hear every day it's meant to inflame. And keep in mind, the media doesn't exist to make you feel comfortable about things. It exists to generate viewership. There's a phrase among media that if it bleeds, it leads. And there's that sort of mentality. So our job as strategists, as people guiding, I am the North American strategist for BMO Private Wealth, which means I work with some other strategists and I write content and put stuff out there that goes to all of our folks. So my goal is to weave through all of what's gone on, particularly in the last 12 to 14 months, and sort through what has lasting impact and what is going to carry forward. I write a weekly strategy piece, and every week I'm trying to figure out of all the headlines that are going on, what has real impact for what stocks are going to do, what bonds are going to do, how does it relate to the economy, how does it relate to currencies, how does it relate to a lot of that stuff, and pull it through. And so early on last year, we started really seeing some different trends emerging, and I've only got a few slides, so let's go to the next page. One of the primary trends we all heard about was AI. Is it good or bad? Person of the year, the focus has been very narrow. We're trying to get that focus to be broader and to think more broadly. We actually put our capital market assumptions out a couple of weeks ago, and there's 3 core themes we're using in there. And Industrial Revolution 4.0 is one of the first ones. It's not just about AI. It's about cloud. It's about robotics. It's about security. It's about all the other things that are fundamentally changing the composition. Here again, the media is trying to get in there and make us all worried about we're all going to lose our jobs and AI is going to take over and do all those jobs. Every time you've had a major technological transition, people have been fearful of that. Well, think about it. Coal mining and electricity put whalers out of business. Autos put wagon wheel manufacturers and buggy whip manufacturers out of business. It's very painful in these transition periods, but growth and transition and movement is part and parcel. And there's all sorts of jobs and careers that haven't even been invented yet that we will be able to use the next technology. And more than just AI is also about the implications you're seeing for healthcare and logistics and everything else. All the stuff that makes global business happen is who's doing it. So that Industrial Revolution 4.0 is a really big thing that we're leaning into. Let's go to the next page, please. The other thing that's very imperative that we've seen, markets have a tendency over my entire career, no matter how explosive the geopolitics got, markets have a tendency to look through them. We think that's one of the arcs that's fundamentally changed. I mean, when you look at the trajectory that the globe had been on for the last 60 or 70 years, some of those arcs there was a very big boulder thrown in that pond last year, and a lot of those arcs got sent off in different directions. The key thing that you're seeing is that you've got President Trump, even more recently with the national security statement, now saying the US is going to focus in the Western Hemisphere. But you've also had a lot of movement going on from China in terms of not just recently, but when you go back and look at ever since the first trade war, you start looking back in 2018 and during Trump's first term, started shifting some of the policies. China is trying to look through things, and there'll be the next. Actually, go ahead and turn the page. This, I think, is very impactful. It's hard to see here. And actually, if anyone wants, I have this full complete deck that has all kinds of data and stuff in it. If you want, just drop me an email and I'll send it to you. The key thing is that the set of global countries on the top are from the year 2000. The ones on the bottom are from 2024. And if you look at the shift on the left, it's the US versus EU. It's been pretty much stasis in terms of who dominated global trade between those two entities for the most part over that couple of decades. On the right-hand side, you can definitely see the difference in China and the focus in China in terms of broadening out. And it's not just global trade, it's also technology. Because China's 2025 plan, which they first issued in 2015, said, here's the 12 or 14 technologies we want to own. They listed them off. And by 2025, they own every single one of those technologies, or they've got key leading positions in those technologies. Those are important things to watch. And taking it back to Davos last week and Mark Carney's talk there about if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. I honestly have envy over you all here in Canada because he's a great leader for you, in my opinion, in terms of the longer term vision he's trying to lay out. I understand there's challenges provincially and making sure that everybody stays in house and lots of stuff happens there. But having a vision, having some things you want to own, and being able to be inspirational and saying we can build big again and we can do this and move these things forward. That's the kind of vision you need to make, and he's navigating very carefully. And the one thing I warned our team of a couple of weeks ago is that President Trump's standard operating procedure is to throw a lot of really egregious headlines out there, not just on one topic, but on many different topics, throw them at the wall to kind of put everybody off. And so I was telling especially the Canadian team to take a deep breath and keep calm about this, because there were likely going to be a lot of egregious headlines in advance of the renegotiation coming up of CUSMA. And we had an internal strategy meeting today, and people were like, well, it's not technically a renegotiation, but it will be with President Trump because everything's a negotiation. So the fact that you've got two big powers, I mean, the great part is this entity that you're all part of here is, I mean, like, this is tailor-made for you. All of these shifting relationships, everything's on the table and everything's up for renegotiation, I think, in terms of who people are partnering with, where goods are going and flowing and staying involved. And you need partners because you need people that can walk you through the logistics, that can walk you through how do I tell my story and how do I market and get things out there? How do I get to the right connections? So that's where marketing and networking. And the fact of the matter is, politics may stay contentious on the macro level, but like we all know, what happens on a day-to-day basis is those relationships we all have with each other. So let's flip through. I know I'm going to be close on time. So I put a few things in here in terms of, there's a lot of conversation right now, because the third key thing that I really don't have a picture for is the third key theme that we have, aside from the global pivot and the Industrial Revolution 4.0, is the evolution of markets themselves. Because you've got things like prediction markets and factors like this. The reason I put these out there is there's a lot of fear out there right now about markets being at a bubble. Are we in that? A lot of conversation. And it was interesting because we had 13 different BMO internal strategists from all different parts of the bank on this call that we do monthly today. And we all talked about the fact that we hate being in consensus because everybody's thinking the market's going to do well this year. I'm probably bolder in some of my predictions, just in terms of, I honestly think we could tee up a globe where growth is stronger, inflation is lower than we expect, and politicians have every excuse under the sun to run the economy as hot as the bond market will let them. Because the bond market is a really good governor, if you will, because especially intermediate and longer bonds start rioting, if you will, where people won't buy those bonds if they're very worried about what's going on politically. Ask Liz Truss. It was 6 weeks of proposal, and she was ousted, if you will, because of what happened with the gilt and the UK bonds at the time. But right now, the bond markets have been pretty tolerant, letting the politicians do it. But you've seen increased spending everywhere. Germany's taken off the debt brake. Japan has the biggest defense budget out there. China's got to spend to get its people consuming again. So around the globe, you've got basic fundamentals undergirding things. And as long as the markets are amenable, and you do have technology coming in, you've got companies very much attuned to where their margins are. So we honestly think that you could see the global economy run hot with a lot more volatility. We saw volatility today, but that's sort of the basic bottom line. And if anything, the one thing we all came away with is, even while all of us are constructive, if you will, on markets, there are people that are like barely constructive or kind of constructive, and they call it the wall of worry. And we're definitely climbing that wall of worry, which is a good sign, because bubbles only happen when everyone throws in the towel and says, I got to buy it all because it's all going up. And so I'll leave with that third point about markets evolving. I think one of the things that helps support traditional markets going up is the fact that we've got all kinds of alternative ways to lay off risk. In the US, we've got prediction markets that are starting to come in. We've got some framework around cryptocurrencies and stable coin. We've got digitization and tokenization. We've got all kinds of single strategy leveraged ETFs. There's lots of different ways for people to say, I'm nervous about this, so I'm going to buy this over here as a hedge, other than just impacting their stock and bond portfolio. So there's a lot of moving parts. So let's go on, because I think I'm almost done with slides. Can you return that slide, please? Yeah, let's go ahead and turn the slide, because these are just some from the deck. This is actually, when you look at prior bull markets, the red line there is where we are now relative to other upticks. And these cover a lot of things. And once again, my slides, for whatever reason, didn't come through. Actually, if you contact me, I can get you the PowerPoint slides that have all the data filled in here. So let's go to the next page, please. This is what it looks like in terms of bulls outrun bears over the very long term. Stock markets are up the majority of the time. Next page, please. And so despite the one thing is I started off with the fact that economists really do look at markets, and as humans, we're not wired to operate well in the capital markets because we're wired to look for patterns. We're wired to want to run with the crowd. And those are things, it's one of the reasons why those of us that have been at this a long time, when the whole crowd is running towards that, we're all bullish. That's what makes us nervous, because you don't want to get swept up and miss what might come in. But we do think there's constructive markets going on, a lot going on, but I would encourage you actively to push back against a lot of the media that might make you want to frighten or react nervously, because the one thing that's also important to remember is, as a species, we're the only species that can insert a pause between stimulus and response. Because a lot of times the media, the daily headlines, even I myself, I walk into my screen at home and I have a very large curved screen where I put the markets up every day. And when I walk in my office and it's bleeding red all the way down onto my desk, I get nervous. So I pick up the phone and call partners to talk me down, because it's hard not to get emotional about this stuff. But I think change is nerve-wracking, but it creates a lot of opportunity, and that's where you all come in, because there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I'd encourage you all to lean in and grab it.
Anybody have any questions? Thoughts? Anything online that anybody has a question on? There's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of green and there's a lot of red. But generally what you're saying is the year looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your overall advice?
Some of that's the overall advice is, don't be nervous about taking some of the gains and going ahead and trimming some gains. A lot of times we'll advise clients to take a look back at where you started last year and look at the gains that are in there, and especially if you can pull some out and set them aside. Don't have things in the market that you're going to need in the next few years, but overarchingly, there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of different places to look at it. I would have suspected after last week that there'll be a lot of global investors looking at how do they participate in Canada. And it's tougher in Canada because the TSX isn't reflective of your economy. So if you're looking to get invested in the economy, then doing business here, partnering with a company is going to be better. But then again, TSX is mostly has a predominant quantity in that index of metals miners, which has been a nice place to be too. So I think it's just to keep your wits about you and realize that there's fundamental underpinnings on a lot of this stuff, and also to realize that global diversification matters, because there's a lot of other, with commodities running, emerging market countries participate. There's a lot going on in these other countries that's worthwhile. And it's been a long time since diversification had worked, because the only trade in town for a very long time has been the US, and that's not necessarily the only case.
Good thoughts. Thank you. But we have the deck stacked against us as global people. We need to push through for the things that we talked about. Proximity bias is certainly very important and is working against us. Proximity bias, by the way, is a good thing, because when we're walking across the street, we want to know if there's a car coming. So we want to know what's right around us. But to keep that and global thinking is tricky. And the reason why the Global Chamber isn't as big as it will be in the future is that there's not enough people focused in on the bigger picture like you all are. So thank you for being that. It's really important, as we mentioned, that you work with people that know what's going on in the world. And so Go Global does that for a living. One of the great things that's happening right now is technology is evolving and allowing us, for instance, to hire people anywhere in the world and to have global teams and to be able to, Doug Wendt, going back to Mr. Queens, New York, he's got people all over the world. He's in Johannesburg this week and then Toronto and wherever, and he's got the ability to get people all around the world to be helping their clients. And similarly, Go Global works in over 100 countries. And so Rachel Kepix is here, and I think Andrea Lee is on the call. So could you come up, Rachel? And thank you. I apologize for the comments about Texas, because you live in Texas.
I do live in Texas, but I am not originally from Texas, so it's fine. No hard feelings.
Where are you living now?
Still live in Austin, Texas, originally from Philly.
Philly. Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
I'm a Philly girl. I'm a Philly girl.
Very cool. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles. I'll take that. All right. I have a couple of slides here, so we'll pull them up. If you could go to the next screen. All right. Just wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Rachel Kepix. I am the Associate Director of Business Development at Go Global. So I support our partner network, and I'm a member of Global Chamber, which is great. So been at Go Global for about 6 months now, so still relatively new to the company, but not new to the global expansion space. Previously worked at Safeguard Global, which is another global expansion provider, if you've heard of them before. And I was previously a global advisor supporting our clients with their global expansion projects prior to moving into our partnerships role. So I have real experience actually doing the work, advising our clients, and now moving into finding partners to support with those efforts, filling gaps for our clients as well. So if you could go to the next slide. So Go Global, essentially what we do is support clients in expanding internationally, regardless of the spot they're at in global expansion. So they might be a new company that's expanding for the first time, or a company that has expanded multiple times but just needs a little bit of extra support. So we're very hands-on organization. While tech is great, I think I've talked to a couple of people today about how tech is really meant to support the global operations. There's just some things that you really need that human touch, that human interaction to really get all of the answers that you need and understand the ins and outs of what it takes to expand globally. So that's really what our company does, is provide that global guidance, and then help on the operational side to actually get companies up and running in a country, whether it's their first time or, again, like I said, they've expanded before. So if you could go to the next slide. All right. So just to tell you a little bit about Go Global, we work in about 145 different countries, supporting our clients. So virtually anywhere you would want to expand, we can support with that. We have a little over 600 employees all over the globe. One of the things that makes us different from many of the other expansion providers out there is that we actually have people on the ground in the countries that we support that are local experts and can help guide our clients. It's not all driven by tech, but we do have tech that helps support those efforts. We work with some companies that you guys may have heard of, like Netflix, GoDaddy, Samsung, and support in their global expansion efforts as well. If you could go to the next slide. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the options that you have to go global. There are a good handful, and there are pros and cons to each. I think as the world has gone global, employees are not just getting offers from companies here in Canada, but they're also getting offers from global organizations as well that are offering different benefits. And so it's important to understand what are your options when you do want to expand, when you want to craft a competitive global offer, and what are the risks and the benefits to that. So if you could go to the next slide. So the first one we kind of set aside is independent contractors. It's one of the options that you have to expand globally, and it's probably your riskiest option if you are looking to hire workers in that way. Pros of that are that you can onboard really fast. You can onboard a contractor in a day. You can get them paid within a day if you need to. But you really want to make sure that those contractors are classified appropriately, that they should be working on a short-term basis, typically project-based roles, because the thing that you want to avoid and that governments are really starting to crack down on, really since the pandemic we're seeing, is that those companies or those contractors they're starting to find that some of them are misclassified. And much of that was because workers were just going all over the world during the pandemic, and companies didn't necessarily know how to handle that other than set them up as a contractor. So that's one of the things we do at Go Global is we help evaluate the contractor themselves, what they're going to be doing, and we can help identify if they should be contractors or if they should be employees, and we have solutions to support them in that as well. So we help manage some of that risk on behalf of our clients and make them more compliant in the long run. The other pro with contractors is that you can pay in various currencies. We often see certain locations like Argentina are a great place to hire contractors, mainly because they want to be paid in USD, just because the value of the dollar is higher there based on their inflation. So, it works for some areas, other areas it does not. So some of the cons of hiring contractors, super high risk. As I said, if they're misclassified and the government finds that out, you can be liable for back taxes, back entitlements, bonuses, particularly in the more litigious countries. We often see that in Latin America or Western Europe, tend to be the more litigious areas. So you do want to be careful if you're hiring contractors in those areas. The other con of hiring independent contractors is you typically don't have any protection of your intellectual property. So if you hire contractors, you do want to make sure that you're writing that into your contracts if you're not already, because you do want to make sure that that is protected for you, where typically with employment contracts, you are protected in that way. The other thing with contractors is that you need to make sure that those contractors are filing their taxes and paying those taxes appropriately. A lot of what we see is that typically, generally it's around when you go to terminate that contractor. What they can do is take their employment contract, bring it to a labor court and file a claim against you, essentially saying that, hey, we should have been classified as employees. This is the contract that I have. Your name is on it. And so if they're not paying those taxes appropriately, you're essentially liable for that at the end of the day because they are your contractor. The other, I think, con of contractors is that you can't provide them benefits. And so there are a lot of contractors or employees nowadays that are saying, we don't want to be contractors. We want to get those comprehensive benefits. And so, hiring contractors, you may not get the best talent because it's much more competitive in the space today. And then, like I mentioned, getting some feedback here. Like I mentioned, the risk of, hold on, I'm not sure if we can, maybe somebody has their sound on. So lastly, the risk of labor law issues, typically that comes, like I said, upon termination, particularly in those more litigious countries. So if you can move to the next slide. So there are 3 other pathways for market entry, and these are a bit less risk for you as an employer. So we're going to cover 3 of these. Employer of record is the first one. If you're familiar with that, employer of record essentially allows companies to hire and pay workers in a country where they may not have their own legal entity. And what they do is us, Go Global, as an employer of record, we have entities all over the world. And so we will hire on our client's behalf, and we put the worker back on assignment out to our client. So they can still manage them as they normally would. We just act as the legal employer taking on the risk for those clients. So that's essentially how that works. Non-resident payroll, that's a secondary option. And that's essentially just a payroll registration. So it's another way you can expand internationally, but there are some limits. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, setting up your own legal entity, establishing and incorporating your business in that country. So we'll talk about the pros and cons of each. With employer of record, that is going to be the fastest time to market outside of independent contractors. So typically we can hire workers within a few days up to about 2 weeks. Really just depends on the particular country, the regulations in that country. Certain countries will require you or require workers to take medical checks before they can actually be hired. And so if that's the case, can take a little bit longer. Those countries are France, Philippines, Brazil, and some others. As far as the cost structure for employer of record, it can be very predictable, depending on the employer of record you go with, certainly. But typically it's a flat fee each month per worker. When you look at workforce size, so typically for employer of record, we recommend it for smaller headcounts. Tends to be more cost effective that way. Also is a really great way for you to test the market. So if it's a new market for you, you're just not sure if it's going to work yet, or you want to test the talent in that market, it's a great way. That's kind of low pressure for you to hire workers, but then also be able to exit very easily, much more easily, certainly, than setting up your own legal entity. As far as the business activity there, typically for employer of record, because an employer of record takes on the employment liability for clients, that is ideal for mostly white collar roles, very similar to a PEO, if you're familiar with that. Generally, we wouldn't hire more of the high risk roles because, again, we take on the liability. So typically we avoid oil and gas or agriculture, construction, things like that. And then as far as geographic flexibility, that offers much more. Like I said, we support in about 145 different countries, so you can go in and out of countries very easily with employer of record. Now, as we talk about non-resident payroll, that is kind of the middle ground to set up. So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but typically takes about 45 days to set this up. It's essentially, like I said, just a payroll registration, so you're not establishing your entity there. It's low setup and maintenance cost, oftentimes more affordable for clients that don't want to establish the entity, but just want to have a couple of people in a particular country and want them to be directly hired by them versus the employer of record, where the employer of record is hiring them on your behalf. Again, very ideal for small teams, typically 1 to 5 employees. And part of the reason for that is because there are some limitations with non-resident payroll. So those are limited to non-revenue generating roles. So you can't have like a salesperson, but you can have administrative roles or back office roles through an NRP. And then this is also limited to specific regions. So generally, it's very popular in Europe, as well as Commonwealth areas, but it's not available everywhere. And then legal entity. So this is going to be the slowest option, or it's going to take the most time to set up. Generally around 4 to 6 months, but in some cases it can take up to a year plus. And that's really depending on if you're hiring workers, you need to make sure your entity is worker ready. So there's more things that you have to set up, like making sure you have a payroll provider, HR support, tax and accounting support, So it really just depends on how you're utilizing that entity. As far as the cost structure, it is a higher initial investment, but if you are planning to hire workers or hire a higher volume of workers, and legal entity is typically the most cost-effective way for you to set up. Typically suitable for larger teams, and then there's no restrictions on the business activities you can have with your entity. Certainly, depending on the industry, there might be some licensing requirements or registrations or insurances you might need, but generally you can set up your legal entity for any type of business. And then this is going to be country specific. Once you set up that entity, it is that country that you are committing to hiring into. So if you could go to the next slide. So just to highlight some of the pros and cons with employer of record, like I mentioned, the employer of record takes on that liability on your behalf. So this is going to be the most protected way, I think, for you to hire employees internationally, because you have kind of that shield of that third party employer of record taking on that liability versus you taking that on yourself. With EORs, because they are the employer on the ground, they are responsible for managing the HR compliance, the payroll, the benefits on your behalf. So you can kind of take that off your plate. You don't have to be an expert in that particular country. At least with Go Global, we have access to local experts. So, you know, like I mentioned, we've talked about this with a couple of people here today, is that human interaction is really, really important for our clients. They want to talk to a local expert on the ground who really understands what it takes to hire in a particular country, what the benefits look like, the cultural aspects, holidays, time off, all those things. When I first started in the industry, one of the things we did was they gave us a list of questions and said, now Google this and try to figure out how you hire internationally. And let me tell you, it is not available online. So you really do need someone to kind of hold your hand through this process. And that's what an employer of record can do for you. You'll also get access to premium benefits. So if you're hiring workers internationally, if you're hiring just a small handful, you don't get access to all of the premium benefits that you may get with a higher headcount. So that's the benefit of an employer of record, is very similar to PEO. We have that buying power because we have a higher headcount than just those 1-2 people. We are hiring for all of our clients. So you can oftentimes get a better benefits package for those smaller headcounts of employees. Like I mentioned, it's also easier to exit a country with employer of record because all you need to do is terminate that employee, pay severance, depending on the country, but you don't have to dissolve your entity, which can often take more time and money in order to do that. So the other option that we see for clients is that they utilize employer of record as an interim solution to entity establishment. So it's a great way to test a market, decide if that's going to be the right one for you. If it's not, you can exit. If it is, then you can continue to hire workers and get them up and running before your entity is actually established. And then we'll transition those workers over once the entity is established. And then we've talked about timeline. As far as the cons, employer of record does get more costly as you grow. So typically we see clients that are moving to establishing their entity once they have 10, 15, 20 workers in a particular country. So that's typically our recommendation. As I mentioned, we typically only hire white collar roles with employer of record. And then because these are not your direct employees, oftentimes that's the biggest challenge for clients, is that if they're not your direct employees, there are some limitations on what they can do, even with some of those white collar roles, just based on how the entity is set up in country. So if you could go to the next slide. All right, I'll go quickly through NRP. So pros of this: tends to be more affordable because it's just that payroll registration. It's not a full entity setup. It's also used as an interim solution before you establish the entity. So again, you can get workers set up and running, and then eventually start hiring more and move them over to your entity. This also allows you to deploy that global solution with local controls from multiple jurisdictions. So you can have multiple international workers through a non-resident payroll in multiple different countries. So it's a quick and easy way to get workers set up. And then, like I said, timeline is about 45 days. As far as the cons, you're still taking on the liability of the workers. So unlike employer of record, you don't have that shield of liability. These are your employees on paper. However, there are some limitations. So you can't sign any local contracts, you can't make local sales, or have a local bank account with a non-resident payroll. Like I said, just a payroll registration. And because you can't have a local bank account, you also can't offer supplemental benefits. So when you're looking at, where do we want to hire? Does a non-resident payroll make sense? Oftentimes this can be less competitive in certain areas where supplemental benefits are becoming more and more popular. So for example, in Canada, you have your national healthcare system, but it oftentimes is more competitive to offer that supplemental plan. You can't do that with non-resident payroll. So you do want to be careful about the countries that you get into with this type of setup. It's great in areas like Western Europe, France, Germany, areas where they have a really robust government-sponsored plan, great for non-resident payroll. But areas where those supplemental benefits are more important to clients, we typically don't recommend it. Like I mentioned, there are some limitations to the NRP setup. So typically it is available in Europe, mostly Western Europe, and then the Commonwealth nations like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And then, like I said, you're taking on the employment liability. So you are liable for any terminations or offboardings of workers at the end of the day. You may have worked with a outsourced HR, which is great, but at the end of the day, that is still your worker. So if something goes wrong, you take the blame for that. Next slide. Okay, so then lastly, entity management. So this is, if you want to establish and this is the location you want to establish in some cases you have to have an entity for distribution purposes or licensing purposes. It makes more sense to establish the entity. That's great. We can help you with that too. So pros of that are that you have the full control over that entity. Those are your workers directly. You can manage that, and you have the ultimate control over how you utilize that entity. It's more cost effective over time, like I mentioned, especially if you're going to have multiple workers. If you're looking to scale your team quickly, we always recommend going entity setup. Now, there are some cons on that. Certainly taking on the full liability of those entities and the operations of that entity, as well as the monthly, quarterly, and annual compliance. That is your responsibility. You may need to source additional partners like HR, accounting, payroll, if you're not doing those things in-house. So it can be a little bit more costly upfront, but again, in the long term, tends to be more cost effective if you're growing a larger team. You have to stay up to date with the ever-changing regulations. Not only do they change year over year, but sometimes mid-year. So you do have to make sure that you have a reputable team that is managing the compliance. And then it can be time consuming and costly to exit that country. In some cases, like in India, it could actually be more costly to exit the country than it is to actually establish in the country. So that's why we oftentimes will recommend employer of record to start to test the market before you take that leap. And then finally, just in terms of how long it takes, about 4 to 6 months, can be up to 1 year. We even had a case where it was a client that was expanding into the UK. Their entity was established, but what they didn't have was their mandatory pension that all employers are required to have. And that's what took 18 months to set up. So it can take much longer to be actually worker ready in that particular country. All right. I think I have a couple extra slides, but I know we've covered a lot here, so I'm going to leave it there. If you all wanted to learn more or schedule a consultation with one of our international advisors, you can just scan the code. So, all right. Thank you.
Rachel knows, doesn't she? Wow. There's another option. And Jem, could you let us know a little bit more about GapTech?
Should I share the video now?
Please do.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Chris Yap. I am the CEO and founder of GapTech Global. GapTech Global, we are an outsourcing company and a staff augmentation company. We help startup companies and growing clients staff faster and more affordable. We provide remote professionals from the Philippines. We specialize in providing engineers, developers, accountants, bookkeepers, marketing and sales professionals, and any back office positions. I apologize I won't be able to join you guys today as I have been coughing a lot and actually under the weather right now, but my friend Doug will give you a rundown of the presentation I prepared for you today. I hope you enjoy it. Have a great day.
Did you hear that in the back? So they do outsource, find talent around the world, particularly in the Philippines. And Chris Yap is is a personal friend for many, many years. And to watch him struggle 10, 15 years ago, and now to see him as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, it's really exciting and invigorating that that model can certainly fits a need. And they've been able to figure out how to deliver that in a very cost-effective way. And so I encourage all of you to learn about GapTech, gaptech.com, gaptechglobal.com. Chris Yap is based in Phoenix, but they get a lot of talent out of the Philippines. So it's another option to go global, to be able to find talent that is in different parts of the world. So speaking of talent, Laura Raguta is a very talented lady, and one of the aspects that the Forum for International Trade Training does is to train people on exporting and trade. It's very important to know the basics of how to do that. And Laura knows that inside and out. They've been members of Global Chamber, and it's very important for us to get what their expertise is out, because this is not something that you learn in business school typically. It's something that you learn when you're on the job. And so I encourage you to learn more. How many are already using the Forum for International Trade Training, FIT, F-I-T-T?
Come on, not one.
Hey,
I'm going to bring my best energy.
a Canada-based resource that people around the world utilize. So welcome to Canada and welcome to a Canadian resource. And I encourage you to learn more. Thank you, Laura.
Hi, everyone. So I do have a presentation. I don't know if they'd be able to pull it up. But what I'm hearing from listening to all of you service providers, and I know Brogan's coming next about, translation and language services. I want everybody to back up a little bit. So the Forum for International Trade Training, FIT for short, is headquartered in Ottawa. We started about 30 years ago. We started with a Government of Canada program because what was identified 30 years ago was that Canadian companies didn't really have a grasp on what it took to expand into new markets, to diversify, to export. So we started with a grant. That grant ended, but there was still such a need to upskill individuals, because trade doesn't happen between nations. Trade happens between individuals, and individuals that have that skill set, that can connect the dots, that can look at opportunities, analyze opportunities before you reach out to, hire employees, open up a representative office in whatever country. You need to be able to do that analysis. You need to be able to objectively look and see if it's feasible for you to do that, if it truly is an opportunity, an export opportunity for you. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what FIT does, our core program, but I don't know where my presentation is. So no, she doesn't have it.
She has a video.
Oh, a video? It's okay. It's okay. I can talk. So would have been nice to see the courses, but that's okay. So what we have is 6 courses. Our international business program is everything from feasibility of international trade all the way through to trade finance, global value chain, international sales and marketing. So it's the A to Z of international trade, right? So whether you're a product exporter, service exporter, whether you're consulting or advising companies, if you take the training, you will be able to connect the dots for your clients, for yourself, if you're a smaller, medium-sized enterprise that is looking for new opportunities, looking to diversify. So we are the leading provider in specific training dealing with global business. And we also have the leading designation, which is the Certified International Trade Professional designation. I am a CITP. I hold it as a badge of honor. I've been a certified international trade professional for over 15 years. I started off with the government of Chile. After university, I moved to Spain because I thought at that time Canadian companies wanted to expand into Mexico because NAFTA, NAFTA 1.0, NAFTA was just signed. So I thought, oh, either help Canadian companies looking to expand or Mexican companies looking to expand into Canada. Anyway, I came back from Spain, was fluent in Spanish, met the trade commissioner and consul general of Chile, was hired on the spot, and I was there for a decade. We were helping Chilean companies that were trying to export into Canada and bilateral trade relations in general. And I was there for the signing of the free trade agreement between Canada and Chile. It was the first free trade agreement between Canada and a South American country. Since then, Canada went on to sign, Peru, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm telling you this is because I was assisting Chilean exporters, and I was trying to help them get into the Canadian market, trying to find, distributors and wholesalers, et cetera, or, partners for strategic alliance. And I thought I knew everything. So the consul general, who went on to become ambassador and then the head of foreign affairs in Chile, he and I took our first course together, our FIT skills course, like 27 years ago. And we were sitting there in the classroom, we're like, we don't know everything. Inco terms, what are they? Why do they matter? I would see price list, CIF, X number of dollars, CIF, to Vancouver. I would see FOB, Valparaiso, Chile. I had no idea what that really meant. So I'm telling you all this because there is a real learning curve. And, the Trade Commissioner Service in Canada, there is a mandate that Canadian trade commissioners become certified international trade professionals. Why? Because then they're better able to help Canadian businesses that are trying to expand into whatever country they're looking to expand into. Same thing with Export Development Canada, EDC. I don't know if people are familiar. We are co-branded with Export Development Canada. So about 6 years ago, we partnered with EDC. And our learning center, our online courses, our FIT skills training is available in our EDC FIT Learning Center. So they also have a mandate that their trade advisors, their team, that they become certified, that they take our training, because there are a lot of nuances in international trade. A lot of nuances, looking for opportunities and knowing, because resources are scarce. Doesn't matter if you're a Canadian exporter, a European exporter, US exporter, resources are scarce. So you've got to, before you reach out to those accountants or the taxation experts, if you're trying to enter into a country, expand there, before you decide to expand into that country, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of research you need to do. So what we do is we set out those frameworks. So when I hear stuff and, I'm listening to everybody and my mind goes to like all the charts and the frameworks and stuff, because my mind is trained to connect all these dots. Like when you need to reach out to somebody like Go Global, like, is that your best market entry strategy to open up a branch office in a country? Or maybe you start with indirect exporting first, right? Or maybe direct exporting. Maybe you find that key distributor that can open up markets for you and you work through a distributor at first. Maybe later on, 5 years down the road, you might want to open up a branch office or a representative office. So there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of analysis, and that's what we do, and that's what we do best. That's why we've certified over 1,800 professionals with a designation over the span of the designation. We're in like 65 countries around the world. Our courses you can take them online. But why it matters is because, so I wish I had my presentation, but anyway, I'll get past that. What did Carney say? No point, but a strategy is not to mourn the loss of something. So I'm not mourning the loss of my slide deck. I'm going to move forward. But anyway, why it matters is that because, as I said, trade doesn't happen between nations. Trade happens between individuals and trade capable individuals. And really, like a lot of companies that I've talked to, they learn by trial and error, right? I was on a webinar yesterday, very successful, clean tech company. And he said that years ago, they would just pepper markets. They would try to see if their technology stuck in these markets. Well, now they can't do that anymore. You don't have the resources to pepper markets, to go in, test the market, and then retreat. Sometimes you do that, your reputation's gone. So it's about being strategic about your company and where you need to go into. And that's what we teach you. I have CITPs at certified professionals that work for banks. So I had one, I hosted a CITP from the National Bank located in Montreal, like headquartered in Montreal. And he said that he's become, because of the CITP designation, he's become the go-to person at the bank. So when all the tariffs were, last year, and all of their clients were going, oh my God, what do we do? 90% of our exports go to the United States. And so everybody would run to him. Everybody that was, they didn't know what to tell their clients. So he was the person, the go-to person that could connect the dots for everybody, that everybody leaned on him for advice. So what I'm encouraging people to do is to have one champion within their organization that could connect the dots, either for clients or within the organization itself, to make those strategic, smart, global expansion decisions. So that's all. Yes. And I just want to mention, so we've partnered with Global Chamber and we're thrilled. So as Global Chamber members, we are offering an exclusive discount of 20% off of any Fit Skills training. So any of our courses. So that we can put in in the newsletter, we can put it
So we
online.
should
Yeah.
definitely find out.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Doug.
No mourning
No more.
and no trying. Charles Bukowski, very famous, his gravestone. Everybody knows what it says on his gravestone. No try, only do. When people say, I'll try to do that, drives me crazy too, but read his book. He's an amazing author. What's that? Yoda said that? Charles Bukowski was way before.
It was actually.
There you go. Before we run out of time, there's two people I'd like to make sure that you get to know. One is Ellen Sue, who's in Vancouver, and another is Barbara McKenzie who's based both in Edmonton and Calgary, and they're key leaders for Global Chamber. In October, Ellen, prior to that, she joined Global Chamber, and she's a real estate guru. And I remember a few weeks before an event that she pulled off in Vancouver for Global Chamber and a variety of other entities that she's been involved with. I was really worried, like, are we going to get people there? And lo and behold, it was, I think, almost 100 people at the downtown Vancouver. Ellen is a mover and a shaker. So Ellen leads with Jim Huang our weekly global real estate conversation. And that's important for Global Chamber because real estate goes with economic development, goes with business. That intersection is really important for economic growth and what's going on in the world for foreign direct investment and exporting and how that all mingles together. So yes, she is a commercial real estate agent, one of the best bar none, certainly one of the best bar none in Canada. And so Ellen, thank you for your leadership. Would you like to mention anything about Vancouver? Thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you so much, Doug. I think I really appreciate the honor to have a chance to talk a little bit about what I do. So I'm the CEO for Prominent Real Estate Services and Promont Management in Vancouver, where we advise to investors, corporations, and nonprofit on the acquisition, development, management, and disposition of the real estate asset. And I also serve as a director advisor to multiple incubators, technology firms, and nonprofit organizations. As Doug had mentioned, last October, we had a global summit in partnership with Global Chamber, which we brought over 100 executive and government officials from US, Canada, and the UAE, really to examine the future trends of global capital investment in commercial real estate. And he also mentioned I co-host a Global Chamber Real Estate Roundtable with James Huang every Wednesday at 7 a.m., where global leaders really discuss about international investment strategies and best practices. So if you're interested in joining our webinar, learning more about all the new best practices around the world, please go to globalchamber.org to learn more about it. And of course, this year, Doug and I are discussing to have another in-person event where we'll invite a lot of the high-level executive to discuss about the future trends in investments. Thank you so much, Doug. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're amazing. The idea behind Global Chamber came out of a discouraging conversation I had at the World Trade Center, San Diego, where I was living in Phoenix and here's San Diego, and they didn't want to collaborate with us. And I'm thinking, if I got a business in Phoenix and I want to grow in San Diego, which organization do I join? And one of the really cool things about Global Chamber is you join and you're a member anywhere you want to grow. And so Ellen has taken that to the next level through her leadership. And there she is in Vancouver, but she's impacting the world. And that's really, at the end of the day, really what we kind of all want, right? We want our families to be successful and our children and grandchildren. I'm speaking for my grandson, Luca, there, to be successful and live in a better world. And each of us have more impact. And that's what we're looking to facilitate. Barbara McKenzie is another amazing Canadian leader. She actually started our chapters both in Calgary and Edmonton. And then she got very involved in some other things. She's deeply connected all across Alberta. Alberta's kind of famous in Arizona because everybody in Alberta comes to Arizona during the winter time. So everybody's got an Alberta license plate in Arizona during the time. I haven't seen you, Barbara, down in Arizona yet, but we have her up in Canada, and she is now establishing both the Calgary and the Edmonton chapters as Global Chamber Alberta. Thank you for your leadership and all that you do in that region. Is there anything that you would like to comment on?
Well, thanks, Doug. I'm very excited to get the Alberta Chamber started again. I am based in Edmonton, but with deep ties into Calgary as well. So really focused on the entire scene here in Alberta. My background, I spent over 15 years in investment, entrepreneurship, supports, and economic development, and 20 years in marketing communications. I just reopened my own company here, supporting founders and CEOs in their paths and journeys of scaling up businesses. One of my key focuses has always been global reach and export. So Global Chamber is just a natural fit for everything we want to do and everything that we're hoping to achieve. Canada is, in an interesting position right now. We have an incredible global opportunity. There's a lot of talk in Alberta right now across Canada about a lot of things that are going on the political level, but that doesn't change business. And we want people to know we're open for business in Alberta. We're still trying to attract investment. And you know what, things may change, but they probably won't change. And we're going to continue being a strong part of Canada and a strong part of the global chamber.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Somehow my mother taught me social justice. I'd only figured it out after she passed away. But things I saw in Korea and Japan in particular inspired me to make sure that Global Chamber, in addition to making connections around the world for businesses to be successful, is that women and anyone that typically is marginalized gets the opportunity to be successful. People are judged by their religion and their skin color and whatever cultural thing that they have. And I just don't think that's right. I think they shouldn't be judged, period, but they should at least recognize the value they bring to the table as the most important thing. And so thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Ellen, for all the work that you do. We really appreciate you. Despite the fact that he's a man, our next speaker, Brogan Taylor, is extraordinary. He's the chairman and CEO of Stillman Translation, and they do extraordinary work. And you're going to hear more and more from them, because with artificial intelligence coming, there was a theme that, well, maybe all this localization and translation work, is just going to happen automatically through AI. That's not the case. And so you're here to tell us you got to be thinking about localizing in a way that the local people understand what you've got, and you do an amazing job. What would you like to share today?
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, we talked about so I do have a slide deck that we can share some slides with, and I have some speaking notes, so forgive me if I read a little bit. But we talked about, well, one thing I'll touch on is being a member of the Global Chamber. My organization's been a member for 3+ years now, and we started with my president over in Barcelona, being part of the chapter there, and now I'm here talking to you in Toronto, and it's just a natural fit, and it's easy as that. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I'll jump right into it. So my name is Brogan Taylor. I'm the CEO of Stillman Solutions team. I'm excited to share with you tonight about how we help the world's most knowledge-driven, compliance-heavy industries communicate with precision, speed across languages. You can jump to the next slide. So we focus mainly in the legal, healthcare, and education spaces. Healthcare as well as life sciences, and education as well as training. So think e-learning, HR platforms. Healthcare and life sciences, think pharmaceutical spaces, but also healthcare settings and medical settings like large hospital networks. And then the legal sectors, think immigration law, but also cross-border M&A, even trial law, litigation, legal proceedings and stuff like that. They trust, I guess, in law, healthcare, and education are not just information. They are trust, safety, and understanding. So our integrated language operation solutions ensure those values remain intact no matter where or how you work. Each of these sectors faces rising multilingual communication demands, whether it's legally certified immigration paperwork, critical patient-doctor communications, or global learning platforms. Traditional translation approaches can't keep up with the scale or regulatory scrutiny. What's missing is integration, and that's where we step in, linking automation, compliance, and linguistic expertise in a single operational framework. You can hop to the next slide, please. A single mistranslated phrase in a contract, a medical protocol, or a training manual can have a significant legal or ethical consequences. Our clients operate in these high-stakes special spaces daily, and they need systems that guarantee accuracy at scale, not just translation at speed. I think what we talk about AI disrupting many industries, especially the translation industry. Back when I first acquired Stillman in 2022, ChatGPT came to market in November of that year, and I thought I just lost everything. Every translator that we worked with around the world thought they were losing their job the next day. But the biggest impact we found was more on the client's perception of the services that we provided. We were doing project-specific work, and now we're unleashing really the opportunity to deliver what we did on a project-by-project basis on an integrated approach as a managed service provider at scale and unlocking accessibility at an incredible rate. We introduce structure and automation into the chaos, basically. Our solutions centralize multilingual content processing. So instead of fragmented vendor management and manual PDFs, organizations get a unified workflow with built-in automation, traceability, and compliance visibility. We leverage technology to do the heavy lifting, machine translation, terminology enforcement, and workflow tracking, while certified linguists ensures subject matter accuracy. We design workflows specifically aligned with regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, and ISO 17100, keeping sensitive data protected and language outcomes consistent. And hop to the next slide. In practice, our clients have achieved remarkable efficiencies, drastically cutting delivery cycles for regulatory translations, improving compliance documentation accuracy, and making educational content accessible to thousands of learners around the world. One major reason organizations choose us is compatibility. We integrate directly with their existing systems, whether that be a legal document or case management system, electronic health records or medical record systems, and learning content management systems. We integrate directly in those technologically, and we automate workflows and processes. So language operations become part of the daily workflow, not a separate process that has to be teamed and managed on a manual basis. Our multilingual operations teams and secure cloud infrastructure are distributed across regions to ensure data compliance and responsiveness. We combine advanced AI with human expertise to deliver linguistic precision that meets both local and international expectations. As members of the Global Chamber, our mutual goal is to strengthen international business through scalable language access. We invite partnerships, pilots, or collaborative projects to explore how integration can simplify complex multilingual operations for your organizations. Let's build clarity across borders together.
It's a great point that I think we originally got connected through Caro, who's from Argentina. She's based in Barcelona. She knows Yuka Nakasone, who's a longtime member and leader within Global Chamber, who's from Japan but lives in Spain. And now she's helping facilitate some work that you're doing, and she's helping our work. And it's the world is a big place, and if there's some order to it, and you know who to work with, and you trust them, then some really good things happen. Tomoko King is our last speaker, and she's done that between Japan and Canada. And this is kind of I think, a really nice way to end this conversation, because the way the thread of tonight is that we started by saying the world is an amazing place. There's great opportunity here. And the forecast, as Carol mentioned from BMO, is it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to go. There's blips, but overall, 4 to 5% a year, 7% last year, it's continuing to grow. How do you do it? Well, Tomoko King has been doing that between Japan and Canada. She worked for Toyota for 19 years. So she's got that corporate experience and knowledge. And now she's helping small and medium-sized companies get into the market and do all the things that it's hard to figure out unless you actually do it, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way, and Tomoko helps them make a lot fewer mistakes. So thank you, Tomoko. Bring us home. Let us know some success.
Thank you, Doug. First, I wanted to get rid of that, right? I think a lot of people were looking at that. Hello, everyone. My name is Tomoko King. Bonjour, good evening, and ohayo gozaimasu. And if there are any, my people out there in Osaka, maido mokatemaka. If you do literal translation, it's hilarious. They're very business-based, as Eric knows. So their day-to-day, how's it going? If you literally translate what I said, is how's your business? Are you getting rich yet? So it's perfect. Next slide, please. So I can't see Zoom chat, but please do participate, because if you drop a comment or question, we can follow up later. So quick show of hands. Please give me or type number 1 if you are currently engaged with Japan in any shape or form. It could be business partnership, innovation, academic research, distributor, whatever it may be. Okay, keep that hands up. Give me number 2 if you are considering, exploring, but not quite yet started engaging with Japan yet. Okay, give me 2. And give me 3 if you have not yet considered Japan, but you're open to learning about it today. So there shouldn't be any more, right? So there's no 4th, which is great because Japan doesn't like number 4. Like number 13 here, it's bad luck. So if you're in an elevator in Japan, there's no button for 4th floor because there's no 4th floor in Japan, and there's no room for in Japan. I'd like you to take a moment and think about what comes to mind when you think of Japan. Next slide, please. Are you thinking about Tokyo, one of the most advanced and fastest moving cities in the world? Or have you thought about Kyoto, decades of heritage, tradition, and craftsmanship? Or have you thought about Mount Fuji, calm, tall, confident silence, respect for nature? Or maybe you thought about bullet trains. Who loves bullet trains? Who doesn't, right? Speed, engineering excellence, reliability, punctuality, and of course, there's this beautiful cherry blossoms. And what's great about this is that these are not just cultural highlights. They're actually greatly embedded in Japanese core business values. Next slide, please. Japan is a very attractive market for Canadian companies. The fundamentals are already in place. The economy is strong, stable, free trade foundations are there. And Japan is actually a very strategic entry point for broader Asia. And Japan invests in innovation, research, and collaboration in the areas that Canada already strives in. And there's a great alignment between the two countries' business values. So the opportunity is real and the fit is very strong. Next slide, please. But there's always but, right? But when Canadian companies consider Japan, many of them tend to hesitate because they don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to be disrespectful because of such unique and different culture. But it doesn't mean these challenges means you have no opportunities. It just means that Japan respects and rewards companies that enter with respect, thoughtful preparation, intent, and care. Next slide, please. So how do we succeed? When you think about success working in Japan or with Japan, it comes down to some key principles. Cultural fluency over language fluency, precision over speed. In other words, quality over quantity, and relationships over transactions. With these key principles in mind, when Canada and Japan grow together in harmony while respecting each other's differences, thoughtful alignment creates long-lasting success. Next slide, please. I am currently operating my business out of the Waterloo region here in Ontario, Canada. And I'm very interested in connecting the region with my hometown, Osaka. Very interestingly, Waterloo and Osaka have a lot in common. Both are global-facing ecosystems, vibrant entrepreneurial innovation, technology, and research. And they're both actively participating and advancing quantum-related work. I will tell you a story to share in closing. I was speaking with a colleague in Waterloo a couple weeks ago, and he shared his experience of Canada-Japan collaboration. He used to work for MapleSoft, a Canadian software company that was later acquired by a Japanese company. Shortly after the acquisition, the Japanese parent company came to visit them here in Canada. So the Canadian team was expecting typical post-acquisition discussions, such as major shift in company direction, tougher targets to hit, cost reduction, or even organizational restructuring. So they were a little bit apprehensive, a little bit anxious, but the Japanese team surprised them with this very different question. First thing they said is, what can we do to help you? How can we support you? The Canadian team was a bit confused and surprised because they were not expecting those questions. And the Japanese team continued to say, for example, are there any other companies in the area if we partner with or join forces would strengthen your position locally or create new opportunities for you? Or are there any things internally, structure-wise, process that you're struggling with that you need help with? So Canadian team was very surprised. And they said, this is his word, he said, this was mergers and acquisition, but they treated us as part of the family as opposed to a business transaction and took care of us for the rest of their partnership. And the experience working with the Japanese team was incredibly rewarding. My mission is to help creating more of these success stories between Canada and Japan. And if that involves Waterloo or Osaka or both, that's even better. Last slide, please. Next slide, please. Today, I focused on the what and the why, because the how comes from interactive, hands-on workshops with real examples. So if you're interested, or if Canada and Japan is on your radar, whether you're already working with them and possibly navigating some challenges due to differences in culture, or if you're exploring and wanting to make sure you're set up to succeed, or if you're simply curious, please talk to me. And those of you on Zoom, thanks for joining. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. If there are questions on chat, definitely we'll follow up after. Thank you. ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Tomoko. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add or any questions that they have before we go to Ernie? Maybe make some final comments. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
Of course, the two Trowbridge folks. So thank you.
Mr. Doug White, he was already texting all around.
So thank you all for coming. Oh, yes.
And I think we have one who'd like to speak, Christopher Phillips, here in the Zoom, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, hello. My name is Sir Christopher Phillips, and I love this presentation. I have been involved with Japan ever since my days at Yale when I majored in Asian history and languages. I'm an English teacher. I'm an executive English teacher, and I deal with the Japanese North American issue from the other direction, which is helping Japanese people speak better English, which isn't just a question of grammar and vocabulary. It's a question of a different way of organizing thoughts. And the Japanese language organizes thoughts differently from English and other Western languages. So most of my practice is actually Japanese speakers, and I've specialized in it for many years. So I'm delighted to meet you all, and see this Japanese-centered presentation. My information is in the chat, and my company is called BeautifulAmericanEnglish.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
All right.
Yes. So, Tomoko, I want to be in touch. I sent you a message.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Catherine Boston. I think is the first member, maybe 10 years or so ago, that we had in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Do you mind if I surprise you and just say, because you're doing some really interesting work, can you talk a little bit about what's going on in Toronto and give us a sense of some of the exciting things, like actually how do you Here you go. Hey, if you talk, can we hear? Catherine?
I think so.
Great. I was super excited to meet you in person because
We can hear a bit.
I remember a podcast back in the day for one of my very first podcast meetings.
Despite that.
So I hope that I've kind of channeled a few the folks towards the Global Chamber over the years to that interview. Again, in Toronto, I mean, I've been here for over 25 years now. It's changed a lot in that time. It's becoming more and more international with each passing year, which is a very good thing. And yeah, exciting things are happening. I think we're in a very interesting time right now where I think a lot of Canadian-based businesses who were perhaps very focused on making it in the US are now maybe expanding their horizon a little bit more than they would have maybe 5 years ago, taking interest in other parts of the world. I just joined a company in the charging space called Velocity, and they are already in 12 plus countries, and it's by virtue of the founder being originally from India, so he already had a network out there, and other countries needed it as well, and that was almost from the time that the company launched 8 years ago. So there's a lot of international thinking, I think, that's happening in Toronto more than ever. There always was, but I think it's just increasing now, and yeah, we're just living in very interesting times, and so it's great to see all these folks around with different angles on how to go global, how to do international business, the different resources and tools that one needs to make it happen. I've worked at FIT in the past, with more on the marketing side. So we actually had Pamela on my podcast too. Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's nice to see all these organizations coming together. And it's, I think, Toronto chapter meeting is long overdue. I'm really thrilled that someone on the baton of heading the Toronto chapter, and I hope we have many more of these.
Well, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate being here. Continue to mingle, continue to eat and have some drinks and enjoy each other's company. And thank you again for coming today. It was wonderful. Thank you. And then our online team, I'll say goodbye. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
Jem, for managing everything on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone.